I'm Lotatans. Today I will guide you step by step how you complete your Lab 08. Okay, more focus on the NAT. Okay, or we call it as a network address translations. And also we will cover the network service applications. Okay, how we going to configure the FTP. Telnet we have went through on the Lab 07. And another one we will focus on the DHCP configurations. So for today's lab, you will go through a three part. Okay, NAT configurations, FTP configurations, and also the DHCP configurations. So let's start for our first part for the NAT configuration. So during the class, okay, we have went through the theoretical part to understand what is a NAT. Okay, we went through four types of the NAT. Okay, which is a static NAT. Okay, but before we went through four types, okay, let's recall back what is a network address translations, or we call it as a NAT. So basically, they're trying to resolve, okay, the exhausted, okay, IPv4 address is not enough to use. So that's why, okay, when you went through the exercise, always you are going to using the private IP address to assign to a local area network there. But when you are connected to the outside internet, so you need to translate your private IP address to a public IP address. For example, if let's say the student PC, you are under the UMS, so you are going to assign the private IP address, okay, based on the configurations of the UMS. So when you're trying to access the internet, you will translate your private IP address will be translated and matched to the UMS public address to connect to the outside. Okay, so we learned four types of how you going to translate your IP address. Okay, the first one is a static NAT. Okay, it's a one-to-one. So this one we seldom to apply it because it did not solve the issue of the IPv4 address shortage there. Okay, but most of the times we were going to using is a dynamic NAT. Okay, on dynamic NAT, that means you need to create an address pool, okay, so that they are flexible to assign the available public address to be allocated to a private IP address, okay, and do the mapping there. Then we also went through what we call it as a NAPT. Okay, NAPT, that means basically you involve the port translations, okay? Not only the IP address translations, but also including the port. So most of the times, okay, in the real world, we call that one is a dynamic NAT. So for today's, basically you were doing is a NAPT. Okay, even here we put it as a dynamic NAT. Okay, because what is the difference between the dynamic NAT and also the NAPT is only the port translations. So on the class, I already mentioned for the dynamic NAT, you did not involve the notepad. Okay, so that one is a dynamic NAT. But NAPT, you basically involve the port translation. And then you also went through another the easier configurations. We call it as a easy IP. That means you don't have the address pool, okay, to assign, but you were directly using the interface public IP address to translate it. Okay, then last one we were going to learn how you're going to configure your NAT server. Okay, so on today's topology, we were going to using a router 1, router 2, and router 3. So router 3 will reside the outside of the that means it's under the public network. You can assume it's a internet there. So router 2 and router 1 basically is a private network, or we call it as a intranet. So we were going to make the router 2 as a address. Okay, router. Okay, and then for the lab exercise, we will make it as a NAT server. Okay, so let's start doing our lab configurations. First, always the same. You have to open your ENSP. Okay, after you open your ENSP, okay, the same things we were going to do is follow the topology on the NAT lab exercise. So the same thing you were going to select, okay, the you can select the AR2000 or AR2240, okay, or if cannot workable, you can select the router also. So you select drop the router 1, router 2, and also the router 3. So after that, you're going to select your copper. Make sure you select is a G00 to G00 router 2 and G001 to G001. Okay, then you go into highlight or kickstart. Okay, always we will going to put some knobs to ease your configurations on your topology there. Okay, so for the G00, okay, we were going to name it the same things, name it as your normal metric. Okay, router 2 and then router 3. Okay, so on here you are going to make it as assign the IP address 192 private IP address 192.1.1.1. Okay, it's mask 24. So on here you are going to assign 192.16.1.254. Okay, so that mask 24. Okay, so another site. Okay, this site we were going to let them as a public. So we were using 1.2.3.4. Okay, so that's 24. And then another one we were going to assign 1.2.3.254/24. Okay, so maybe you can remark, okay, if you still don't understand. So you can going to make it, okay, for this one, we were going to make it as a private IP address highlighted in yellow color. And another one is we going to make it as a public IP address, no, public network. Okay. So to help you differentiate, you can going to put some remark. So this one will serve as a private network, just like you are within the UMS campus. Okay, this one is you trying to access, example, the internet. Okay, outside you browse the Facebook, okay, is here. Okay, so always the configurations is quite straightforward. Okay, first thing, no matter how you have went through so many times, you must know how to assign the IP address on your interface. And then to enable each of the router, because now the router, they are decide. Okay, one is a private network, another is a public network. We must do is they are different, belong to different network. You must go into enable the routing. Okay, routing. So which of the routing protocols that we were going to apply? Because it's quite simple, so we're not going to apply the OSPF. We just do a route, static route. Okay, so we were going to build a static route from the router 1 to router 2 and router 2 to router 3. Okay, then after that, you will start to configure, okay, your NAPT. Okay, dynamic net, okay, which is a dynamic net with port translation. Or you can call it as a NAPT. Configure NAP lah. Betul. Okay. Then we were going to try also to change it to configure, to change it as a easy IP. Okay, then we will go into configure also for the NAT server. So later we will end out the remarks when we went through a different types of the NAT translations. Okay, the first thing we go into assign the IP address and build the static route. We do a step 1. Okay, make sure you go to every interface, enter the system view, name, system name. So name system name BI23XXX router 1. Then go to a router 2, enter the system view 6 name. So name it as your normal metric. Okay, so put as a router 2. So the same things go to a router 3, system 6 name. Okay, BI23XXX router 3. Okay, after you done all of this one, so the same things go back to a router 1 assigns the IP address. So you have to go to the interface. So now we enter the interface G000. G00, okay, assigns the IP address 192.16f.1.1. So you're using a network mask 24, subnet mask 24. So quit it. Okay, move to your router 2. Okay, router 2. So router 2, the same things move to the interface. Okay, G00. G000. So we were going to assign IP address 192.16f.1.254. So network mask 24. Okay, then you quit it. We still have another interface G001. G00 interface G001. Assign the IP address 1.2.3.4.24. Okay, the same things you go to the router 3. So enter the interface G001, typo G001, IP address 1.2.3.254, okay, 24. Okay, if let's say now I trying to ping, I quit, okay, I on the router 1, okay, I trying to reach up router 1, okay, I trying to reach up the router 2, okay, whether can or not. So I will try to ping 1.192.1 16x point 16x point 1.254. Of course can, right? Because you are belong to a same network there. Okay, so now what you trying to do, okay, the same things but for you to reach up your router 2, okay, from your router here, okay, you will go into ping also. Example, under your router 2 you create, you try to ping 1.2.3 to 0.254. So you are able to reach up also. But you remember, router 1, you cannot go into communicate with the router 3. Okay, because you did not go into configure the routes on the router 3 to reach up on it. But now we just assumes, okay, every route, okay, we will go into ensures, okay, example, this one is a public, so we will go into ensures, you need to build up the static route to ensures whatever sources, okay, from the they want to go to any network, they must went through a 192.168.1.254. Okay, so you will go into configure on the router 1. Okay, the same things go back to your router 1. You need to build the root static. Okay, enters your system view. Do the IP root static. Okay, for any source of the network. Okay, any destinations they want to go. Okay, any networks. The next host they must go to is a 192.168.1.254. Okay, must go through a 1254. So enter. Okay, the same things you will go through your router 2. Okay, you are going to set up. Okay, for any network, they must go to my next hop is a 123.254 on here. So you enters, okay, do again on the IP root static. Okay, for any network. Okay, so they will go 1.2.3.254. Okay, now you already done the step 1 and step 2. So we will go into enable the telnet for you to do the subsequent configurations later on. Okay, So this one, we will going to enable the router 1 for the telnet. Okay. So the same things for the router 3, we will going to enable the telnet. But we will going to do is for the, how to say, to enable the remove access. Okay. So the first step, you will go into the router 1 to create the VTY, virtual terminal interface there. Where is it? Okay, router 1. Okay, you enter the user interface. Okay, virtual VTY from the 0 until 4. Okay, so now you enable the authentication mode is a AAA mode. Okay, recall back for the last exercise. So you quit it. So now we're going to configure under the AAA, we will going to add the users. Okay, so we refine the local users. Okay, the user name is a test. Okay, password. So you try to using the irreversible. I think this one might not be support. Okay, so you only can use a password cipher. Okay, using password cipher Huawei at 123. This one is the password that you want to do. The cipher, that means you encrypt the password, but it's a two-way. That means you can encrypt and you can decrypt. So it's not that secure. Then a reversible, that is one way. You just can encrypt hash, keep it, but you cannot rehash or decrypt to get back the plain text password in a plain text. Okay, so after that, okay, enters. So you already add the new user. Okay, so now you are going to set the local user. Okay, the test. Okay, you define, okay, this user, I only allowed them to access the service. Okay, types is a telnet. Okay, I also going to set the local user. This user test, I will set the privilege level as a 15. Okay, so you quit it. So the same things, you go to a router 3. So make sure you enter a system view. Okay, create the interface to enable the interface. Okay, VTY 0 until 4. So the same thing, you going to enable the AAA. Okay, stand for the authentications, authorization, and also the accounting. Then you quit. So now going to your AAA, you need to add the local user. Local user. So the user, the same things, you're going to name it as a test, user test. Password, the same thing, we are not here are the versions of the VRP. They're not going to support the irreversible, so you're just using cipher. Huawei at 123. But in a real world, please going to update your versions, okay, your software version for your network devices, and going to using the irreversible cipher lah. Okay, so now you already add the user, so you set, okay, what kind of the services they can access. Local user, so for the user test, okay, this is the user that you create. So now you set the user test, they can access is using a service type, telnet. Local user test, you are using a privilege level 15. Okay, then you're going to quit it. Okay, now we already enable the functions for us to do the verifications later on. Okay, we can start to do our third step into doing the configurations of the NAPT. Okay, so to do the NAPT, first step, okay, you actually it's same like the dynamic net. Okay, you just going to do the address pool. Example, this one. Okay, we will make it as a router 2 to serve as a egress router. Okay, so we will going to assign the address pool. okay, the public IP address pool. So we were going to using is a 1.2.3.10 until 1.2.3.20. Okay, so we were going to using this address pool to assign to any devices. They need to do the public IP translations. Okay, so to configure the address on your net, okay, so you go through your router tool. Okay, make sure you enter your system view. So the keyword is you have to using net address group. Okay, address group 1. You can name the sequence number address group 1. So it's the number of the address pool. So you are going to make it is a 1.2.3.10. Okay, until 1.2.3.20. I need to type the full sentence. So you are going to using address. Okay, so after that, okay, recall back our last week exercise, you need to do the ACL on the source. Okay, if your ACL is just filtering on the source, so you are going to using the basic ACL. So basic ACL should start with the numbering 2000. Okay, so you are going to name as a rule, initials with 5, starting with 5. So you are going to allow source any. Okay, just allow the any source. Okay. So after that, you are going to quit it. So now you need to bind your address group. Okay, on the outbound. So where is it our router to? Where is it your outbound? It will be under your G001 on here. Okay, so go to your interface G001. You need to bound it. So net outbound, okay, by your ACL, okay, outbound your ACL, and then the address groups that you have defined, the net address pool, okay, group that you define on here. Is a numbering is 1 kan? So now you're going to build it. So this one is the ACL that you define. So remember on here we are using is a NAPT. That means you will not going to you were going to translate the port number. So that's why on here, okay, if for the dynamic you were going to put here is a notepad. But on here you were not going to do it because you want to maximize. Okay, you translate not only translate the IP address, but you also translate the port number. Okay, so you were not going to put the notepad, you just going to allow them to translate the port number. So after that, you enters. Okay, so now, because just now, before you doing the configurations, okay, basically your router 1, you cannot going to ping the router 3. Okay, why? Because first thing, they are belong to a different network. And when you do the IP root static, you only make sure for any network, okay, the source, they must went through the next hop, it must go through the 192.168.1.254. The same thing for any, okay, destination. So the next hop, they must go through a 1.2.2.54. But two network is still not able to communicate. But now you enable the net translations. Okay, that means you will translate your private IP address to a pool of the assigns. Okay, 1.10.20 until 0.20 there. So you should able to do to do the how to say to do the network the IP address translations. Okay, but before you do, you can go into quit your router tool. Okay, you can display your net sections. Okay, so you're going to see your net table, you don't have anything. Okay. So now we trying to ping. Okay, we see let them to see. Okay, what happened if I trying to access the private network from my router one? So I try to ping 1.2.3.254. Okay, so you should able to reach up. Okay, should able to reach up. Why? Because you already do enable here, do enable the net to translate the IP address to any address pool that you're going to set 1.1, 1.1, 1.2.3.10 until 1.2.20. So now you're going to the router through, you're going to display the sections all again. This one they not unable to capture. Router 2, why is there they unable to capture, huh? Supposedly you should going to see the IP address there. You can using a Wireshark to capture the data package. Okay, then you will going to see the things there. Okay, now you already understand for the first one how actually you're going to do in the nets. So it's very simple. You just went through, okay, your router 2, just went through your router 2, and then you're going to build up your net address groups. Okay, you're going to set your ACL. Okay, if you're just going to control the source, so you should using the basic 2000. Then you go into the outbound interface to configure, okay, your address group. Okay, that means your address pool for your public address, public IP address, this one. Okay, and then you set up control by the ACL. Then you are going to get configure the NAPT already. Okay, this one you need to try for a few times in order to capture the data. If you always get is a 00, you try to ping again, then you try to display and then you able to capture the data on here lah. So you can go in to see on your source IP address is you are actually received because you ping from the router 1. Router 1 IP address is a 192.168.1.1. So your destinations, it will be 1.2.254. So on this example, okay, you will going to see the net translations. Okay, for the router one, they will going to translate it using a 1.2.16. Okay, 1.2.16 to translate your IP address. Then this one is a the port number they are going to using is a ICMP port number 10241. Okay, so this is a the example lah how basically they translate your IP address. Okay, so when they reach up the router 2, they will help you to they assign the IP address is a 1.2.3.16, the public IP address. If you looking on the topology on here, so they were using is a system, okay, to assign to access to the public network. That means to access the 1.2.354 here. So the next second, the step 4, we were trying to redo against our topology, but we are using is a easy IP. Okay, so very easy. On the easy IP, the differences on the plus I mentioned for the easy IP, you don't have the address pool. So we try for the easy IP. So just remember easy IP, you don't have the address pool there. Okay, so now we need to undo the address pool. That's all. Okay, so you can go to the router 2. Okay, so how you going to undo the address pool? First thing, you of course you need to enter the interface. So just now we are bound it under the G001 on here. Just now we're going to set up everything is under the G001. So make sure you enter is a router 2, you enter G001. Okay, now under your G001, how you undo? You just undo your NAT. Okay, it's a outbound. So it's a 2000. You need to type back. So you were going to unbound the address group 1. Okay, so how you going to configure the easy IP? It's very easy. You just need to NAT outbound. You apply the ACL rule only, but without the address group 1. That one is a easy IP. So what happened? All the sources that you're going to access to the public IP address, they will direct to using a G001 IP address. So recall back on the class, how the easy IP difference from those NAPT is they don't have the address pool, they direct using the interface. So for this example, is a G001 interface IP, public IP address 1.2.3.4 to access the network. So you enter. Okay, so after that, the same things, you will go to your router 1, you try to ping again. So you're able to reach out. But you're going to display, click here. Okay, you're going to display your next sections. Oh. So you need to try for a few times in order to see the effects there lah. Okay, so on here you are going to see the network address. They will not going to select the pool because you already undo the address pool. You just going to assign, okay, on your router 2 is just outbound the 2000 only. You just going to assign, where is it? I going to do, I think I miss on here. Okay, net outbound 20,000 without the address pool. So you were going to using is a G001 IP address 1.2.3.4. So you're looking on here, exactly the same, right? So they were using this interface, outbound interface G001 to access the public network. Okay, so now we were going to move to the last step. How are we going to enable, okay, the NAT server? Okay, we continue again how we going to do the NAT server. Okay, so on the NAT server, now we will going to configure the NAT server on router 2. Okay, wrong one. Okay, the same things, we will go through your system view in a router 3. Go through your router 2. Okay, go interface G001, stay under G001. Okay, you are going to do is a NAT using a NAT server. Okay, protocol. So you tell them you are using a TCP. So your global. Okay, so on here, you need to how to say, to match the tables of the internal server so that the external, okay, server external from the public network, okay, they can access your internal router 1 through the address and also the port translations. Okay, but because now you're using is a easy IP already, so basically you just need to using tell them, okay, I am using a G001, okay, configurations. So you just going to tell them it's a current interface, but the port number on here you using is a 2323. So inside that means in your internal example, we made the router 1 is a Telnet server. So it's a 192.168.1.1. So we enable the service is a port Telnet, or you can put 23. Okay, so now you can try, okay, to ping okay, from your router tree. Okay, router tree, quit. Okay, so you will go into Telnet 1.2.3.4. So you're using this port number 2020. Okay, so you should able to connect. So remember just now the username that you're going to use is a test. Okay, you set up the test. Then you set up the password is a Huawei at 123. Test Huawei at 123. And I think I put the correct name. Test. Okay, so you should able to enter. Okay, make sure you type the correct one now. Otherwise, you will like me. I enter all in the I enable my shift. Okay, so you make sure you enter the Huawei at 123. Then you should able to access it from the router 3 to access your router 1. Okay, so that's all for our configurations for the part 1. So remember, always you can check back your configuration. So you can, example, you want to check back, you just go to display current configurations. Okay, so you can go into check. So remember, just now we make up the user. So this one, you will, your Huawei at 123, your password, it will be put it into the encryptions because you use is a cipher. If you go into hashing, okay, that means cannot rehash back. You have to using the irreversible. So you can check all the configurations there lah. Okay, if you want to troubleshoot. So that's all for the part 1. We will continue to a part 2. So make sure, okay, you save all your configurations. Then save your topology, name it as your Lab08 part A. Okay, now we will going to move to our another second part. Okay, we call it as a FTP configuration. So this one is very easy. Okay, so remember on the class you went through the FTP and trial file. Okay, trial file is you trying to using to translate a small file and then you using a UDP port. Or also we have as another one we call it as a SFTP and you are transfer it under the secure mode there. Okay, so on this as exercise, you part 2, you will going to match okay the router 1 okay as a FTP client and router 2 as the FTP server. So you will going to experience how basically you're going to transfer. As for example, you want to make it transfer your configurations file into the router 2 or download your configurations file or any file from your router 2. So the router 2 will serve as a server. So without wasting the time, just going to open your new topology. So on here, the same things, you can select any router. Okay, just going to have a one connection G00 to G00. Okay, select all, hit start. So on router 1, we will going to assign using the IP address 10.0.12.1.24. Okay, so that we just make it as a STEM network lah, so that you no need to build the routing. So for this one, we will going to make it as a FTP client. This one we were going to make it as a FTP server. So we will try to experience how you're going to download the file, how you're going to update the file, and then how you're going to upload the file, okay, and then how you're going to delete the file. So you rename it, same things away with your normal metric, to trigger, whatever. It's just based on your normal metric. Okay. So always the same things. The step 1 on here, you need to configure the IP address. Okay, this one no need to build out the root routing because you are under the same network. But you need to do is to configure your first thing. Go to configure your server. Okay, then you need to create the users. Okay, FTP local users. Then you need to simulate lah. Try the simulations. Okay, you can test. Okay, let's try. It's very easy. You just go to the command prompt. First one, enter your router. So now I'm router under the router 2. So I name it as your normal metric router 2. So go back to your router 1. Enter your system view. Enter your normal metric and router 1. So assign the IP address of my router 1, it will be a IP address 10.0.12.124. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to enter the interface G00. Okay, enter your IP address. So the same things, go to your router 2. Okay, interface G000. Okay, assigns the IP address 10.0.12.224. Okay, so now example, we want to try under your router 1. Okay, you quit it. Okay, you return back to the system user view. You try to save. Okay, so that later on we can upload router 1 configurations, test 1 configurations. Save. Yes. Same things for the router 2. Okay, you can go into caps of the returns. I'll type the returns. Then you're trying to save it as a test 2 configurations file. Okay, so now you can try to display your directory to view. Okay. dir, not display, dir. Okay, so you can go in to see you have the test2 directory there. So the same one on here, you can go into dir to display your directory. You should get your test1 configurations there. Okay, so we will going to start to configure our step 2, configure the FTP server. So we will going to make is your router 2. Router 2, we will going to make it as your server, FTP server. So you are going to enter the system view, FTP server, enable. Okay, so they will tell you it's successful. So after that, okay, you will going to determine, okay, you want to control who can access. So you're going to configure your local user. So same things, you need to enter your AAA mode. Create the local user. So this one you can going to make it as a FTP client. Okay, the username is a FTP client. So you make the password. So again, on here, we cannot apply the irreversible. You're just going to type the cipher. So enter a Huawei at 123. Okay, so after that, you are going to determine the service type. So now you are using is a FTP. You were going to set is a user FTP client. Okay, you need to put exactly the same name, FTP client. So your determines the service types on here you are enable is a FTP mode. So you set against okay the local users. You need to tell them what actually is the which user. Okay, their privilege level. So you were going to make it is a 15. So this one we give the highest lah. Basically, you must if you're using the FTP, always must be 3 and above. Okay, so now you want to authorize the user to a specific node or directory they can enter. So you are going to authorize the local user FTP client. They only can access the FTP directory for the flash only. Okay, only can enter the flash. Okay, now you already done. You can go into your router 1. Okay, trying to FTP 10 point router 2. So it should be a 10.0.12.2. Okay, so now they will ask you to enter the user. So remember just now we're going to define the user is the FTP client. Okay, enter the password Huawei at 123. I think I entered the wrong password again. Huawei at 123. So you are going to see now I'm logged in successfully. Okay, so now you are under the FTP mode. So remember on the class we mentioned on the FTP you have two types, okay, of the file modes that you can select, which is the ASCII and also the binary. So the ASCII is as long as you want to transfer the program, okay, software. That means it's a .cc, bin file, execute file, and also the image file, okay, PNG file or the video file there. Okay, so you need to using is a ASCII mode there. So how you going to enable the ASCII? So you just going to tell them it's a ASCII mode. ASCII, ASCII. So after that, you try example. Now you want to download. Okay, example. Just now we already know, right? You have a configuration file under the router 2. You have a test2. So now we try to download the test2 configurations. So you are using a keyword get test2 configurations. So you said they were going to and transfer is complete. Okay. So now under here, okay, your router 1, you after you download, okay, now you try to delete. So test2 configurations file. So they will ask you whether you want to continue. So you will type is a yes. CFG. So they will tell you delete command is successfully. So now example, you want to upload your file, okay, on the test one into the directory on the router. So you are going to put, if you want to upload is put 1.cfg. So they will tell you transfer successfully. So you look in on here, okay, you can quit, display your dir. Sorry, you have to return to user mode. So you see on here, you already have a test 1 CFG. Test 2, just now you already delete on it lah. Okay, let's get start for our part 3 DHCP configuration. So on this lab, we will experience how to configure the dynamics, okay, dynamic host configurations, or we call it as a DHCP, okay, dynamic host configurations protocol. So during the class, we went through the theoretical part to understand what is a DHCP. So we recall back the purpose of the DHCP basically is trying to reduce the human error when we're going to doing the IP address. And most of the times on our network, okay, normally is very complicated. If for example your network is quite big, okay, you have a lot of the hosts that you need to assign. So with the DHCP, okay, basically you can simplify your network deployments, okay, and also easier to scale out, and also for use to reduce the human error there. So the DHCP again, it will during the class we have went through the client server. That means you need to and configure for your DHCP server and also the DHCP client. So the server you are going to have to configure what address the available of the private IP address to assign to the DHCP clients to get the private IP address there. Okay, so on the DHCP, basically, here they have a two modes. We call it as a dynamic and also the static IP address. So for the dynamics, that means most of the times you will go into specify a limited validity period. Or on the configurations command or during the class, we have went through the list time. So by default, the list times for the dynamic allocations is 24 hours or 1 day. But you can go into adjust it to be the 8 hours. You can go into adjust it to be a 2 days, 48 or 72 hours, or even a 1 week. Or you can go into specify unlimited also possible, but seldom to do it. Okay. So most of the times on the dynamic allocations, we will going to apply whenever the host is temporarily accessed to your network. Example, you can go into create okay, how to complete this part 3? The first thing we will going to assign the address, okay, the available IP address pool on the DHCP server. Then we will going to configure the global address pool on the DHCP server. And then we will going to assign, okay, enable the DHCP to assign a static IP address there. Okay, so the network topology, okay, we will going to using this one. That means your router 1 and router 3, you are going to simulate as a DHCP client, and router 2, you were going to simulate as a DHCP server to assign the available IP address for the router 1 and also the router 3. So without wasting your time, open your ENSP. So the same thing is we going to drop your router. You can go into select this any router lah. Okay. So make sure you have a enough port. Okay, should be enough lah because you only need a 2 GE port. So example, I select this one. So I have a router 1, router 2, and also the router 3. So this one you create. So you are going to select a G00. So on here, you put it as a G001, G001. So highlight, and then you waiting it to be kickstart. So this one you can name it as your normal metric. This one you can name it as your normal metric. Okay, for here we will going to using the IP address. Okay, for the router 2, for the G00, we were using the IP address 10.0.12.2. Twenty-three, 10.0.23.2, 24. Okay, this one you don't need to assign because they will going to get the IP address from your router 2. Okay, so the same things, the first step that what you need to do, okay, of course you need to configure the IP address on the DHCP server. Then you need to configure your server. Also very easy. And then configure your DHCP clients. Okay, the first step, again, move to your on or the router. Move to each of the router. Let me router 1 move in front. So now I'm router 1. Enter the system name. Okay, name is on your normal metric. So if you go for practicals or you go for the working, please don't rename it as your normal metric. Huh? This one is just for our learning process for the lecturers and also the tutors to verify whether you have done your hands-on or not. So in the real world, of course, you are going to name it as a router 1 or router 2. Okay, so on here, the same thing, enter the system name, router 2. So on here, BI to enter the system name. So name it as your router 3. Okay, so on route, we will going to configure on the router 2 for the IP address because router 1 and 3, we make it as a client to get the IP address from the router 2. They will, maybe I put the remark on here. So this one will serve as a DHCP server. Okay, and then this one you are going to serve it as a DHCP client. Okay, now you move to the router 1, router 2. Okay, we assign the IP address, go to the interface G000. So assign the IP address 10.0.12.2, 24. The same things create, go to the interface G0001, assigns the IP address 10.0.22.2. I forgot to assign the. Okay, so now you are going to quit it. Okay, so now you can go into under your router 1 and router 3. You can go into enable the DHCP server. Never mind. You can go into type DHCP enable on the router 2. Okay, the same things you do it under the router 1 DHCP enable. Okay, router 3 also DHCP enable. Okay, enable the DHCP. Then you move back to the router 2. Now you need to tell the router 2 which of the address pool. Okay, so basically you're going to using a G000. The same things are both sides you are going to do. So interface G000, enter the router 2 G00 on here. So you are going to using the DHCP select interface. So this one, that means we will going to use this interface to use the interface address pool. Okay, so if you're not going to run these commands, that means the parameter related to the address pool, you cannot going to configure. Okay, so after you enable it, okay, you need stay under the interface 00. You enable the DHCP server DNS list. So your DNS list you are going to using is a 10.0.12.2. So what we means by the DNS list, that means we're going to configure the DNS server address for the interface address pool. Okay, so remember you only can configure the maximum of 8 DNS server. Okay, so you just enter. So after you enter, now we will going to configure your address pool. So just type quit IP address. Okay, you are going to using is a global. You name it is a global pool. And they put uppercase. Global pool. Okay, you create your IP address. You name it as a global pool. Sorry, IP address. IP pool. Okay, you name it as a global pool. So after that, you are going to tell the global pool, okay, the network. That means you specify the network address for the global pool. So you are using is a 10.0.23.0 mask 24. Okay, mask 24, and then you're going to build your DNS list, and also the gateway list is a 10.0.23. Okay, on here after that, okay, you were going to determine, okay, what exactly the list time. Okay, so for example, this one we just going to make, okay, the list is a 2 days 2 hours. Okay, so always we seldom to set unlimited lah. Okay, by default, when you're going to set the display, if you did not going to do it, so it will be under the day 2. Okay, for example, like this one, they already quit the pool already, so make sure you enter the system view. So you enter the IP pool, so you enter the global pool. Okay, so next step is you're going to set your this day to hour 2. Okay, so if you set unlimited, it's unlimited lah. So by default, if you did not set the this day, they only up to 24 hours. Okay, now we want to do a static, okay, assignment. So you are going to buy, example, for this one, I want to assign the IP address is a 10.0.22.3. For example, on here, on this one, on the router 3, I want to assign the static IP address to them. To the router 3, I assign is a 10.23.3. So I need to buy the IP address. No, the MAC address, okay, to assign the IP address on here. So how I going to get the IP address of the G000? MAC address of the G00. So you were going to enter the G000. Okay, you can go into enter the system view, display interface G00 3 001. Ours is 001. Okay, so you will get is this MAC address. Okay, looking for the physical. Copy it. So you baca lah AR series blah 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 interval protocol blah 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 blah. So this one is the MAC address. Okay, you just highlight, copy it so that later you no need to retype. Okay, so you can go into enter space. Okay, to look more of the interface information step. So now back to your router tool. Now we want to bytes assign the static IP address. Okay, so I will going to using the keyword static. Okay, byte IP address. So I assign is a 10.0.23.3 to this MAC address. Oh, sorry, I did not. Sorry, I entered the wrong interface. Luckily, it's a wrong one. You need to go to the router tool. Sorry, you need to go to the router tool. Okay, now you already do a binding. Make sure you type is a static byte IP address 10.0.23.3. Okay, you bind to this MAC address. The same thing now we doing is the here on the router 1. Okay, so on router 1 for the interface G004. Okay, you are going to enable to assign the IP address to a router 3. So what you need to do, okay, you go to the router 2 again. The same things, you need to quit. You enter the G001. Okay, on our topology is 1, on the left exercise is a 4. So you go into DHCP, you are going to select the global. So that means you also enable the interface to use the global address pool after receive the DHCP client. Okay, so now you are going to the router 1, okay, to do the configurations. Okay, so on the router 1, G00, right, is a G00. So make sure you enter the G00 system view, enter the G000. So you are going to IIP address DHCP allocate. You tell them, normally you just going to IP address and then you type the IP address, right? But now you're going to mention is a DHCP allocate. The same things, you go to the router 3. So your interface, it will be your interface G001. The same things, assign the IP address is a DHCP allocate. Okay, so now you can try to doings, okay, on your router 1. You try to check whether you able to get the IP address or not. You just display IP address brief. You see, they were going to assign you. Okay, so I think that's all for our lab hands-on 3. So remember to save your configurations and submit your labs to the lecturer for marking. Thank you. Bye. See you on lab next lab, lab 09.